So what I'm going to give you here is the OASIS clinical standards with regard to what is a treatment plan and how we can document a vocational and educational treatment plan. There's information here that it works with all aspects of treatment planning. Okay, so here we go. What is a treatment plan? A treatment plan is a person-centered, holistic, culturally sensitive plan that respects the role of personal choice and commitment in pursuit of recovery. This includes selected family members and or support of others, utilizes community recovery support services if needed, and is facilitated by capable, knowledgeable staff. That's us, that's you guys. Okay? Treatment plans should be developed with the patient's full participation and based on the patient's needs, strengths, motivation, and goals. And as we know from motivational interviewing, person-centered motivational interviewing, we want to identify what the patient wants to work on. And then through a therapeutic alliance, we help them do that. Okay? The treatment plan is a written document that identifies the client's most important goals for treatment, describes measurable, time-sensitive steps towards achieving those goals, and provides a map for treatment as agreed upon by counselors and the patient. And again, this comes from OASIS, their clinical standards. Treatment plans should be described as a living document that provides a map of the course of care. Each counseling visit should relate to the plan. Okay? So now we're going to talk specifically about vocational rehabilitation or educational rehabilitation or vocational goals or educational goals, where a patient could want to have a job and get some vocational training, and yet another patient could want educational, wants to pursue some education, or we know what their education, either they want to get a GED or they dropped out, they didn't complete high school or want to go back to college. So whether it's vocational to get a skill training or educational, go to get a GED, go back to school, go to college. So either one works. Okay, here we go. So goals and objectives are measurable and attainable steps towards the achievement of goals that are identified in the treatment plan with target dates. So objectives are precise, time-based, measurable actions that support completion of a goal. Both the things you do or we do with the patient, or the patient does, specific things that the patient will do that changes that will occur as a result of what they will do. Objectives enable the goal to be met, like the stepping stones to reach your goals. That's what we do in treatment planning. So again, vocational rehabilitation, educational goals and objectives. What is the difference between goals, treatment plan goals, and treatment plan objectives? Let's see if we can define that. Goals are broad statements describing what you hope to achieve as a long-term result of specific activities. So the goals are longer term, could even be over the 90-day period of a treatment plan. But the objectives are specific statements describing precise, time-based, measurable actions that support completion of a goal. So there's a longer-term goal, and then there's steps or specific actions that the patient will take to achieve that goal. Those are the objectives. SMART objectives, S-M-A-R-T. Now, I'm sure you've heard of that, heard that expression. Just in case you haven't, I'm going to go over what that means. Treatment plan goals have to be specific, and objectives have to be specific. They have to be measurable. We have to be able to measure them. They have to be attainable. We don't want to set our patients up for failure, giving them something too big. It has to be something that they can attain, something short term, something that they could do within the first 7 days of being in treatment. They have to be realistic and time sensitive. So, like I say, within the first 7 days, patient will do this within the first 7 days, and we will help them do that. Okay. SMART objectives: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. Okay, what we have here is a list of Bloom's taxonomy of action verbs. Keyword being action verbs. So it's broken down into different categories. There's a printout of this available with the supporting documentation. Just want to point out one section here. This is remember previously learned information and demonstrate an understanding of facts. I've circled several that would apply with regard to documenting progress towards treatment plan goals and objectives. So you can put into the treatment plan that patient will identify and describe examples of relapse triggers, examples of better opportunities to communicate with family members. Patient will compare positive communication to arguing, explain the differentiation between the two, explain, differentiate, and then demonstrate. So, for example, with regard to relapse triggers, the patient will identify and describe and make a list of 3 relapse triggers. And then you can take that list and use that list of relapse triggers to educate the patient and help them to understand about avoiding people, places, and things. Also, it helps him remember previously learned information because he's going to have it written down on a list. So you could give that as a homework assignment. You could ask him to bring it into the next counseling session, and you can go over the list with them, and then I'll give you a demonstration of how to document that in a progress note in the next couple of slides. But this is a way to have SMART goals that are observable, definable, identifiable, using Bloom's taxonomy of action verbs. I've circled some of them that would apply, and you can print this out as part of the supporting documentation in this training. So here is an example of a vocational educational treatment plan in this specific area, the functional life area of vocational educational employment. So it may look familiar to you, whether we used to use paper charts. Now it's all digital, electronic. But it just this is an example for education purposes only. So the area of concern is the patient is unemployed or has poor job skills or lack of education, or it could be anything. You know what the presenting problem in this area could be, but sometimes it's, didn't complete high school, always felt disappointed, did just enough to get by, failed out. There's, all those issues, or can't keep a job. Or, the issues are. So the goal is to improve employability, or get an education, or get the GED. But we can't say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, but you got to go to law school, you got to go to college, I want to get a bachelor's degree, but you got to enroll as a freshman first. So, I mean, we have to make these things attainable. So, here's the objectives, and here's the clinical action or intervention. So, this is what the patient will do. This is what we will do. Patient will do this. We will do this. Patient, counselor, patient, counselor. I'm just making an observation here because I've seen treatment plans, I've reviewed thousands, but I've seen treatment plans where it says patient will do this, patient will do this, patient. This is not. This is what we do. When you see patient will do this, patient will do this. What a clinical supervisor or the insurance companies are going to say, well, what are we paying you for? What are you doing? So this is what the patient will do. This is what we will do. So let's just have a look at this one here. Patient will define. Now, I've highlighted in bold those action verbs. Patient will define or explain or give examples of his current employability, personal needs, abilities, and options so as to target and seek out appropriate jobs. So he's going to define, explain, demonstrate, and then the counselor will bring this topic up in sessions for discussion and offer constructive feedback. Okay? This one here, patient will list 3 vocational or educational, whichever one it is. Patient will list vocational educational interests that he or she would like to learn more about as a possible VRED career path. So we're going to ask them. Well, what have you wanted to do? What would you like to do? What's been what's your dream job? And then the counselor will explore with the patient ONET interest profiler, and I have a URL link here, but I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that is in a separate lesson, a little bit ahead in the course. Okay, but I just have it in the treatment plan so that when we do it with the patient, we say we're going to do it and we do it. Okay, so patient will list 3 vocational education interests and explain their interest as a possible career path. We're looking for them to list something that they want to do, and counselor will explore the occupation search in ONET online. And here's another link, which I'm also going to give you a demonstration of how that works. So what we have here is something that the patient will do, and we will coordinate that with the patient. And here's something that we will do, and we will do that with the patient. And so we say what we're going to do, and we do it. Okay? Again, patient will identify community educational resources. Patient will identify community, and this is what we will do. Okay, so how this works is like I've seen over the years where counselors have said patient will gain knowledge of relapse triggers, or patient will gain knowledge of the benefits of 12-step meetings. Knowledge is not measurable. We can't get inside the patient's head, but we can ask them to explain, identify, define, demonstrate, differentiate in front of us where we're sitting in there and we're watching them doing it, especially with the list. This is great because we'll have the list and we can build on the list. We can look at the list. We can see the list. We can help them make the list. There's a lot we could do with that. Okay, so this is an example of a vocational educational treatment plan. Patient will do this, counselors will do this. Okay? Okay. I'm going to give you an example of an individual progress note that reflects what we said we would do in the treatment plan. So there is a reflective relationship between the treatment plan and the progress notes. So we're in the counseling session with our patients now. And here's a sample of a progress note for a made-up patient. This is an imaginary patient. Let's call him Mike Jones. Okay, so Mike Jones, we're in an individual session. We're always going to check the box, substance use disorder, because that's what we do. But this is the box here, vocational, educational, employment. This is a life area that's in a treatment plan. So, the counseling session. Client arrived on time for his counseling session. That's observable, what's objective observable behavior on our part. Client presented in good spirits. So we're observing and we're being objective. Patient arrived on time, seemed in good spirits. Okay. Client was assigned a homework assignment to make a list of 3 vocational or educational interests that he would like to learn more about as a possible career path. Okay? The counselor or the client came in with the list, and the counselor reviewed the list with the patient and offered constructive feedback. So the patient arrives with the list. We reviewed it with them and offered constructive feedback, which is exactly what we said we were going to do in the treatment plan. So he's come in with the list. We have a list. It's observable. We can see it. We asked him to list 3 things. Actually, he lists 4 things. Okay, so we reviewed it and went over it and discussed it and added to it and had some options. See attached list. Client has achieved this life area. Okay, so here's Mike Jones. Comes in with his list. Let's have a look at it. My list of possible vocational interests that I might like to pursue. Okay, looks good. I like physical work. And then he put here, we said to list 3. He actually lists 4. He'd like to be a welder, a truck driver, HDL license. It's good. Tree work, arborist, cutting trees down, and personal trainer. So he put an extra thing down there. So I asked him about that because that didn't fit in with physical work. And Mikey told me, I'm making this up now, of course, but Mikey told me that he likes to go to the gym. He sees people working out with personal trainers, and he likes to take care of himself. When he's in recovery, he starts to feel good, and he's seen personal trainers, and he said to himself, hey, I could do that. And he put it on the list. So I'm going to explore that and offer constructive feedback. We sign it, Mike Jones and myself, and date it. And we put the 2 together in his treatment chart. Or whether it's digital, I scanned it into his digital treatment part. And then we've got the list. Now this is good documentation. And any clinical supervisor, and I've reviewed thousands of charts as a clinical supervisor, but an insurance company or an audit would come in and look at this, and it says here, see attached list. I mean, this is observable. We've done our work. This is what we get paid for. Okay, this is what we do. This is good documentation. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to make a clinical note. Suppose Mike, or a patient comes in, didn't do his list. I don't have my list. I didn't do the list. Okay, what do you do then? Okay, you get a piece of paper and a pen and the patient, and you give them the piece of paper and a pen. As a matter of fact, I bought 10 packs of cheap notebooks and give them out to patients to do journals. Get a piece of paper and a pen and the patient. So let's do it now. Our patients, it's very difficult to get a recovering addict, a piece of paper, and a pen, those 3 things together at any one time on their own. So we want to help them do that. So let's get the paper and the pen, and let's do it now. Let's make the list now. Let's do it now. And they'll say, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, let's put your name on it. Let's put your name on it, and let's date it. Always date your work so we know where we are. Okay, so put his name Mike Jones, put the date on it. So what do you want to do? Make a list. Give me make a list of 3 things you would like to do. And he'll say, well, I don't know what I want to do. Okay. Oh, let's come up with one. Mike, just come up with one thing that you would like to do. Anything. Dream job. Anything. Anything's on the table. And let him say, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an airline pilot. I want to be a race car driver. Whatever it is, let him come up with something. And then we can kind of, tone it down from there. Something is more attainable. Maybe you can get a job making airplanes and you go in the airline industry or something within airlines, not the pilot, but so let's see if we can come up with something more measurable, more attainable. And then they'll come up with something, one thing on the list. Oh, good. Let's come up with another thing. Let's get 2. Let's see if we can get 2. And then they get 2. And you make the list. So if they don't do it, they don't come in with their homework. Let's do it right now. And you do this. And you document that patient did not come in with the list. Did the list with the patient. See attached list. That's good documentation. Measurable, observable. And these are SMART goals, SMART objectives, and good documentation. And you could use that with anything. Relapse prevention, relapse triggers, all kinds of stuff. That works well. Using Bloom's taxonomy of action verbs and making it observable, attainable, and time sensitive. Okay? I hope that this has been helpful.